Very good morning and welcome. You're watching WION World as One. This is World DNA. My name is Hemkaur Saroya.
And I am Diksha Bisla. And on the show today, Donald Trump's Liberation Day tariffs have led to turmoil in global financial markets. About $2.5 trillion were wiped off the Wall Street as escalating trade war has heightened the fears of recession. Of course, we're going to give you all of that and more on that front.
Right. Also on the show, of course, we will be tracking other developments that are coming in as well. Pentagon has said that it will investigate the Signalgate scandal and will be investigating Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth for using the Signal messaging app to discuss sensitive information. We'll get you all the latest on that front as well. But first, a quick look at the headlines.
Stocks plunged with S&P 500 falling 4.8%, which is its worst day since 2020. Fears of a global trade war sparked by Trump's new tariffs wiped $2.5 trillion in market value.
I think it's going very well. It was an operation like when a patient gets operated on. And it's a big thing. I said this would exactly be the way it is.
U.S. President Donald Trump insists that stocks and economy would boom despite a rout on global markets sparked by his worldwide tariffs.
IMF chief Kristalina Georgieva says new U.S. tariffs clearly represent a significant risk to the global outlook, urges Washington to work with its trade partners.
Pentagon will now investigate Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth for using the Signal messaging app to discuss sensitive information about the military operations.
Iran reportedly scaling back its support to Houthis amid extensive US airstrikes. As per UK's Telegraph newspaper, Tehran orders its military personnel to leave Yemen.
Hundreds joined protests against South Korea's suspended President Yoon Suk Yeol a few hours before the Constitutional Court decides the fate of his presidency.
Defending champions Kolkata Knight Riders beat Sunrisers Hyderabad by 80 runs in the IPL. Venkatesh Iyer was the star for the hosts with a swashbuckling 60 off 29 balls.
All right, Asian stocks started Friday with deep losses as investors braced for further pain across global markets after Wall Street's $2.5 billion rout.
President Donald Trump touted Wednesday as a landmark in U.S. history, saying its tariffs would make America wealthy again. Instead, the steepest levies in a century sparked a rapid sell-off in risk assets, culminating Thursday with a 4.8% rout in the S&P 500.
Shares in Australia and Japan opened in the red while markets are closed in China and Hong Kong. Trump's new trade tariffs caused widespread recession worries and sent investors fleeing to safe haven treasuries and the yen.
Wall Street stocks plunged by the most since the pandemic's depths, wiping off $2.5 trillion in market value. The S&P 500 index sank 4.8%, which is its biggest drop since June 2020. The index entered a technical correction, again following a brutal global rout in markets from Tokyo to London. Economists say Trump's Liberation Day turned into Obliteration Day for markets.
Now, the US stock market is down almost 10% since Trump took office. This marks the worst 10-week start under a new president in 24 years. The last one was under then-President George W. Bush during the dot-com sell-off. The S&P 500 index is virtually in correction over the 52 trading sessions since Inauguration Day.
Well, the Nasdaq 100 index shed 5.4% to mark its worst day since September 2022. The rout was driven by billions in value lost from the biggest US stocks. Apple's 9% loss led to a market value loss of $314 billion. Nvidia's loss was $209 billion. Amazon's was $187 billion, and Meta's value fell by $133 billion.
Now, everything from sneaker makers to apparel plunged after tariffs on crucial manufacturing countries, including Vietnam and Indonesia. Some of the worst hit stocks were the riskiest corners of the market. The Russell 2000 index dropped 6.6% into what's called a technical bear market after losing more than 20% from its recent peak. A continuation of the sell-off on Friday threatens to extend the S&P's losses to 6 of the past 7 weeks. The dollar dropped the most on record. Oil plunged and gold eased from records.
But Trump seems to be unperturbed about the deep plunge. He said the market response was expected.
First, we'd love to get your reaction, sir, to what's going on in the financial markets today.
Well, I mean, it's to be expected. This is a patient that was very sick. We really inherited a terrible economy, as you know, with a lot of problems, including loss of manufacturing and plants closed up all over the country. You know, we've lost 90,000 plants since NAFTA, if you think of that. 90,000. It's not even believable. And about 6 million jobs. And so it was a sick patient. It went through an operation on Liberation Day. And it's going to be a booming country, a very booming country. It's going to be amazing, actually. And we see it because we have trillions of dollars committed to come in, trillions.
Now, supporting evidence for the dark economic outlook is a slowing workforce and economic activity. U.S. service providers in March expanded at the slowest pace in 9 months. Recurring applications for unemployment benefits rose to the highest since November 2021. And Friday's jobs data and Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's speech become important for markets reeling on recession bets.
Now, for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Take a look.
Global markets plunged after President Donald Trump announced sweeping import tariffs, including a 10% rate on most countries starting April 5th, and higher rates up to 34% on key partners like China and the EU from April 9th. The Dow dropped significantly, and major companies like Apple, Nike, and Amazon saw shares all fall sharply due to their global supply chains. In response, Canada imposed a 25% tariff on non-compliant U.S. vehicles, while the UK unveiled a 400-page list of potential U.S. targets. The White House has urged confidence in President Trump's plan, calling it a long-term move to strengthen American industries. But fears of a trade war are rising by the hour. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
All right, and moving on, Donald Trump and his administration has tried to downplay the Yemen group chat leak story as a closed case.
But the Signalgate scandal refuses to die down. Pentagon will now investigate Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth for using the Signal messaging app to discuss sensitive information about military operations.
The probe will be conducted by the Inspector General of the Department of Defense. A memo from the Acting Inspector General, Stephen Stebbins, said that the probe will evaluate the extent to which Hegseth and other defense personnel complied with policies and procedures for the use of a commercial messaging application for official business.
They will also review compliance with classification and records retention requirements. The investigation came in response to a request from the top 2 members of the Senate Armed Services Committee. The Atlantic magazine revealed last week that its editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, was inadvertently included in the Signal chat in which officials including Hegseth and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz discussed the strikes against Houthis in Yemen.
Now, when asked about the probe initiated against his Secretary of Defense, President Trump again downplayed the development, calling it a wasted story.
Hegseth in this IG investigation. Do you want to weigh in on that?
What is it?
There's an IG investigation into the Secretary of Defense's use of the Signal app.
Oh, and is that you bringing that up again? Don't bring that up again. Your editors probably. That's such a wasted story.
A U.S. judge has ordered the Trump administration, had ordered them last week to preserve all signal communication between the 11th and the 15th of March. These dates cover the period between when Waltz set up the chat and then mistakenly added Goldberg, and also the day of the deadly U.S. airstrikes on the Iran-backed Houthis. Now, Israeli airstrikes killed at least 100 Palestinians across the Gaza Strip, including a strike in the north on a school serving as a shelter for displaced people.
Well, it killed at least 31 citizens. Now, the Palestinian medical authorities said that the bodies of 14 children and 5 women were recovered from Dar al-Arqam school.
In the Al-Tafa neighborhood of Gaza City, and the death toll could still rise because some of over 100 wounded had critical injuries.
Well, more than 30 other Gaza residents were killed in strikes on homes in a nearby neighborhood of Shijaya.
Now, the Israeli military said it struck a Hamas command and control center in the area, which had been used by the militants to plan and execute attacks against Israeli civilians and the IDF troops. The IDF said it was unable to confirm whether the strike had hit the school. However, the military claimed 12 senior members of Hamas had been killed since Israeli troops resumed fighting in Gaza.
Since the return to fighting in the Gaza Strip, we have attacked more than 600 terror targets throughout Gaza. We have eliminated more than 250 terrorists, including 12 senior members of the Hamas terrorist organization and in its government branch. All of them are terrorists. All of them took part in the October 7th massacre.
The Israeli military also revised death toll from 2023 attack on the Nova Music Festival, saying that the Hamas militants killed 378 people during their attack on October 7th.
In other developments, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights said that the death of 15 medics and humanitarian workers in Gaza after shots were fired at their ambulances raises further concerns of war crimes by the Israeli army.
I'm appalled by the recent killings of 15 medical personnel and humanitarian aid workers, which raise further concerns over the commission of war crimes by the Israeli military. There must be an independent, prompt, and thorough investigation into the killings, and those responsible for any violation of international law must be held to account.
Amid an expansion of Israeli military offensive in Gaza, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians remain at risk of severe hunger and malnutrition. As the UN Food Programme said, it had not been able to bring new supplies into Gaza for more than 3 weeks.
Now in Tel Aviv, Israeli protesters clashed with the police during an anti-government demonstration outside the headquarters of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party.
The demonstration was attended by various groups, including relatives of hostages held by Hamas. Some protesters marched from the Hungarian embassy in Tel Aviv, denouncing Netanyahu's state visit to the European country.
It said that it will quit the International Criminal Court after Prime Minister Viktor Orban hosted Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu, whom the tribunal has accused of war crimes in Gaza. This is Israeli leader's first trip to Europe since 2023.
Furthermore, the U.S. Senate overwhelmingly rejected a bid to block $8.8 billion in arms sale to Israel over the human rights crisis in Gaza. The Senate voted 82-15 and 83-15 to reject two resolutions of disapproval over sales of massive bombs and other offensive military equipment. The resolutions were offered by Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, an independent who caucuses with Democrats.
And for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from the UN headquarters in New York. Listen to this.
The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting on the escalating situation in Gaza on Thursday. Briefers condemned renewed military operations that resulted in the killing of 50,000 Palestinians and the displacement of hundreds of thousands of others. Many countries also expressed outrage at recent attacks against aid workers, calling for an independent investigation into the matter. Israel, for its part, defended its actions as being necessary to dismantle Hamas's infrastructure and blamed the humanitarian crisis in Gaza on Hamas's failure to extend the ceasefire and release the hostages. Council members called for an immediate truce, humanitarian access to those who need it the most, and warned against any attempt to alter Gaza's border, stressing on the urgency of preserving the two-state solution. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Now, at least 9 people were killed as Israel carried out 2 airstrikes in Syria.
According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, Israel struck military targets in the vicinity of Al-Kiswa and Al-Mukayleba near Damascus.
Now, the attack came less than 24 hours after similar Israeli attacks on military targets and a ground incursion. As per the War Monitor, 13 people died in the attacks. The strikes come despite the United Nations warning that such attacks undermine efforts to build a new Syria.
Well, Israel has been bombing Syrian military assets and has conducted ground incursions into southern Syria since the Bashar al-Assad regime was thrown out of power. Now, according to reports, Israel claims that the attacks are to repel the new government's forces from the border.
In the meantime, Turkey has accused Israel of destabilizing Syria and has demanded Israel withdraw from the territory. Turkey's foreign minister has said that Israel has become the greatest regional threat to regional security and is a strategic destabilizer, causing chaos and feeding terrorism.
Well, this comes after Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar accused Ankara of playing a negative role in Syria. Now, Sa'ar has said that they're doing their utmost to have Syria as a Turkish protectorate.
Now, according to the International Committee of the Red Cross, more than 700 people have been killed or wounded by mines and other explosives in Syria since Bashar al-Assad's fall in December last year.
It had recorded 912 casualties for the entire year of 2024. The organization said that civilians face heightened risks from military vehicles and weapons stockpile left behind by the Assad regime. All right, and moving on, as the Trump administration continues to press Russia and Ukraine to agree to a ceasefire, Russian President Vladimir Putin's envoy, Kirill Dmitriev, met with U.S. officials in Washington.
Dmitriev is the highest-ranking Russian official to travel to the United States since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. As per reports, Dmitriev met with Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff at the White House. He said that he discussed potential cooperation with the United States in the Arctic and on rare earth metals, but acknowledged that disagreements remain. But he did add that he has seen positive dynamics in the relations with the United States and that dialogue is proceeding in a constructive way.
Now, even as Russia's top economic negotiators held talks in Washington to improve ties, Moscow has continued to step up aerial attacks on Ukraine amid Trump's push for a ceasefire. Now, Russian drone strikes killed at least 3 people and injured 32 others in the eastern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv. Ukraine says that the attack targeted residential and office buildings in Kharkiv, causing several fires.
Ukrainian authorities have also reported strikes in the regions of Dnipro, Zaporizhzhia and Kiev. Video captured showed explosions in the southeastern city of Dnipro. 3 people have been reportedly injured in a mass drone attack on the city. And in Zaporizhzhia, further south, at least 7 drone attacks attack targets in the region.
Well, amid the intensifying attacks, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky visited Ukraine's northern Sumy region across the border from Russia's Kursk region, where Kiev's troops still hold small swathes of land.
Now, Zelensky thanked soldiers in Sumy, saying protect the Sumy region from the constant desire of the Russians to enter Ukraine from there. Zelensky said on a recent visit to Finland that Russia is seeking to boost pressure on Ukraine by preparing new fences in Sumy, Kharkiv and Zaporizhzhia.
Well, meanwhile, the NATO chief has warned of global stakes behind the war, cautioning that Russia is working with North Korea, China and Iran. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has said that the outcome of the war will be closely watched by Chinese President Xi Jinping. Speaking alongside Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha at NATO headquarters in Brussels, Rutte praised US efforts to broker a ceasefire but stressed that any peace deal must be enduring to prevent further aggression.
Oh yeah, please do. Please do. Good evening. Andriy Sybiha is standing next to me, the Foreign Minister of Ukraine.
It is time to increase pressure on Moscow.
Now, Elon Musk and the White House are calling reports that he is stepping down as the head of the Department of Government Efficiency fake news.
Well, this after a Politico reported that President Donald Trump has told his inner circle that Musk will step down in the coming weeks from his current role as a governing partner and have a more diluted role moving forward.
Now, late on Wednesday, Musk called the report fake news. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt tweeted Elon Musk and President Trump have both publicly stated that Elon will depart from the public service as a special government employee when his incredible work at Doge is complete.
Notably, the report came on a day when shares of Musk-led Tesla saw a sharp drop of 2% in early trading. But immediately after the report appeared on Wednesday, Tesla shares rose nearly 5%. Now, Tesla share price was up 4.21% at $279.76. Tesla sales had fallen 13% in the first 3 months of the year, indicating the company is failing to attract enough buyers, while its stock price was initially falling more than 6%.
Market reversals apart, Musk is also battling rising public disapproval of his government work. According to a Marquette University Law School poll, as many as 58% disapproved of Musk's handling of the Department of Government Efficiency. Only 41% of the adults surveyed approved of his work. As for the man himself, 60% had an unfavorable view of Musk compared to 38% who approved of him.
Interestingly, Trump's approval ratings are only slightly better than Musk's. 46% approved of his job performance, while 54% disapproved of it. The poll conducted from March 17th to 27th surveyed 1,021 adults across the country.
This ceasefire deal, do you think you need to have a conversation with him to get the Russians to agree?
I'll talk to Vladimir.
Senegal's parliament has approved the revision of the law granting amnesty for deadly political violence in the country.
Former President Macky Sall has passed the amnesty to calm the protest that was sparked when he postponed the March 2024 elections.
Well, critics had then called the move an attempt to shield perpetrators of serious crimes that were committed during 3 years of political tensions between February 2021 and February 2024. 65 people were killed during the protests, 51 of whom were shot. Civil activists also point out that a vast majority of the victims were young people.
But despite the criticism, the amnesty did allow popular opposition figures, including current Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko and President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, to contest and eventually win the election.
In December, Sonko promised his government will repeal the law to ensure that accountability for the violence.
On Wednesday, lawmakers adopted a revision of the law that removed murder, killings, torture and forced disappearances from the amnesty. 126 deputies voted for the measure, with 20 against in the 165-member assembly.
But opposition and civil society members have criticized it, accusing the ruling party of seeking to protect their supporters. Abdul Khafour Khandiji from the Yen in Mare citizens movement said the issue was being politicized by the ruling party.
And with that, it's time now for a short break. Lots more lined up for you on the other side as well. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Thailand on a 2-day visit. He may meet Bangladesh Chief Advisor Mohammad Yunus in Bangkok. We'll get you the latest on this on the other side.
Also coming up, South Afrikaners across the country are protesting, demanding justice for a 7-year-old girl who was sexually assaulted allegedly on school property.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
This week on the West Asia Post. War of words between Iran and the US reaches a new phase. Washington deploys war machines to West Asia. Iran claims US troops are sitting on a glass ceiling. Will the US Houthi war turn into a wider regional battle with the West? Israel says it will dissect Gaza to retrieve the hostages. Is Bibi Netanyahu putting Trump's plan for Gaza into action? Also on the show, we track the history of uprisings against Turkey's president. And tell you why Syria's new government might backtrack on its promises. Catch the West Asia Post only on WION World is One.
As Ghibli-style portraits rule the internet, we tell you what exactly is the Ghibli universe. Find out all about the A-listers and their side hustles. And meet former cricketer Yuvraj Singh as he talks about his new venture. All this and much more with me, Diksha Bisla, on WION at these times.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. Lots lined up for you on this side of the show as well. But first, look at the headlines.
South Korea court upholds the impeachment of suspended President Yoon Suk-yeol. Court says Yoon's declaration of martial law violated the country's constitution.
Asia-Pacific markets extended losses on Friday, tracking Wall Street's worst single-day drop since COVID. Benchmarks in Australia, Japan and South Korea fell over 1%.
I think it's going very well. It was an operation, like when a patient gets operated on, and it's a big thing. I said this would exactly be the way it is.
US President Donald Trump insists that stocks and the economy would boom, despite a rout on global markets sparked by his worldwide tariffs.
Pentagon will now investigate Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth for using the Signal messaging app to discuss sensitive information about military operations.
Defending champions Kolkata Knight Riders beat Sunrisers Hyderabad by 80 runs in the IPL. Venkatesh Iyer was the start for the hosts with a swashbuckling of 60 of 29 balls. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi began his two-day visit to Thailand on Thursday.
He will take part in the 6th BIMSTEC summit that will take place today. Ahead of the BIMSTEC summit, Prime Minister Modi also held talks with his Thai counterpart Shinawatra in Bangkok. Addressing a joint press briefing with his Thailand counterpart Shinawatra in Bangkok, Prime Minister Modi said that the two countries have enhanced their ties to strategic partnership.
हमने भारत के उत्तर पूर्वी राज्यों और थाईलैंड के बीच टूरिज्म, कल्चर, एजुकेशन ऐसे क्षेत्रों में सहयोग पर बल दिया है। आपसी व्यापार, निवेश और बिजनेसेस के बीच आदान प्रदान बढ़ाने पर हमने बात की। एमएसएमई, हैंडलूम और हैंडीक्राफ्ट में भी सहयोग के लिए समझौते किए गए हैं।
On day one of his visit, Prime Minister Modi witnessed that version of the Indian epic Ramayana. The performance featured a fusion of India's Bharatnatyam and Thailand's traditional Khon dance. Lauding the Ramakine performance, PM Modi called it a cultural connect like no other.
Now, the Thai government also commemorated Prime Minister Modi's visit by releasing a special postage stamp. This stamp featured the Ramayana mural paintings from the 18th century. Later, the Prime Minister was also presented with a special edition of the Tipitaka, which is a revered compilation of Buddha's teachings.
Later, the Prime Minister was seen sitting alongside Bangladesh's Chief Advisor Mohammad Yunus.
Now, all eyes will be on the BIMSTEC summit today. Established in 1997, the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation, or the BIMSTEC, is an international organization of 7 South Asian and Southeast Asian nations. Member states are India, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Myanmar, Nepal, Sri Lanka and Thailand.
After his visit to Thailand, Prime Minister Modi will visit Sri Lanka from the 4th till the 6th of April.
Now, hundreds and thousands of South Africans across the country have been marching and protesting over the last few days, demanding justice for a 7-year-old girl
who was sexually violated last October, allegedly on school property at Bergview College Independent School in the Eastern Cape province.
Now, despite reports that the mother had reported the matter to the police, it was largely ignored for 5 months. The recent publication of the case has ignited anger and frustration among South Africans, including children. Ordinary South Africans, political parties, religious groups have called on the authorities to investigate the matter immediately and arrest the perpetrators.
The South African Police Service has since taken over the case. Meanwhile, the principal of Bergview College Independent has also sparked outrage for allegedly refusing to provide DNA samples for testing. Lobby group AfriForum, that is representing the principal, says it is not possible for the principal to have been involved in the rape of 7-year-old that allegedly took place on school premises last year.
Now, the political party MK staged a protest outside the AfriForum office to demand justice for the 7-year-old.
We have realized that AfriForum is defending the rapist, yet it claims that it does not defend him. But what we are saying is that they must not interfere with processes of the law, because we know that they are defending this man because he is white, and they are a racist organization which have proven beyond doubt that they are racist. They have went to America to lie and say South Africans are killing Boers in South Africa, yet we are living in peace here.
It's important to note that the 7-year-old's case reflects a broader, disturbing trend in South Africa. Between 2018 and 2024, statistics obtained through a 2024 DA parliamentary question revealed over 106,000 reported child rape cases. That's an average 316 per month. In the Eastern Cape alone, rape accounted for a staggering 46% of all reported crimes against children, while nationwide the figure stood at 38%, a figure that's still alarming.
And for more on this, a correspondent, Carlton Ongmo, has sent us this report from Johannesburg. Listen to this.
South Africans are protesting across the country to demand justice for Kwekwe. But this case is not an isolated one, but forms part of a broader disturbing trend. Experts say this case of a 7-year-old from Matatiele in Eastern Cape reflects a broken justice system that continues to fail the victims of gender-based violence in South Africa. It is unfair and unjust for a rape victim to wait 5 months for justice to take place. Experts have raised concern about the cracks within the justice system, saying they only compound the system's failure to protect the children. The attack on the 7-year-old has shaken the country because it is every parent's worst fear. Schools are generally regarded as a safe haven for children, but the reality for many girls is that schools can be a place of sexual discrimination, harassment and violence perpetrated by fellow male students and teachers alike. This is Carlton Ongmo from Johannesburg, South Africa for WION The World is One.
Now, US President Donald Trump's Liberation Day reciprocal tariffs have hit all major American trading partners.
His plan will set a 10% baseline tariff across the board and further tariffs for about 60 other countries he deems as the worst offenders.
Now, in line with that, EU faces 20% tariffs. The UK, however, gets some relief, being in the 10% bracket. While there's still no sense of delight in the UK after the tariffs announcement, some hope the higher duties imposed on European rivals could be an advantage for their US export ambitions.
The fact that it was 10%, and I'm not going to just say only 10% because it's still a big deal. However, it gives us that tailwind over our European competitors. So we kind of view it as still continued to be a big opportunity for us.
While the European Union was hit with a 20% rate, Switzerland, a major exporter of premium chocolate, received more than triple Britain's tariff at 31%.
It's a kind of nice, one of the few Brexit advantages that we will have. or that we do have. Again, I'm kind of quite excited in a way, because I think certainly whenever the American market imports so much chocolate, suddenly we're a little bit more affordable.
And that gets us to the steep tariff camp. According to the French Wine and Spirits Exporters Group, FEV's sale of French wine and spirits is expected to slide by at least 20% in the United States. The US is the biggest export market for France's Bordeaux wine. The head of its lobby group says that the last time Trump imposed tariffs at 25%, a corresponding 25% of the value of exports was lost.
There's a real disappointment, a feeling of being weighed down, of hardship, after all the obstacles we already have. Climate change, the challenge of marketing around the world, the instability we see, the problems with setting up reliable distribution.
The US market for the French dairy industry, including cheese, has doubled in 15 years. The head of the lobby group, the ENIL, expected the market to stabilize rather than fall, with the hit being felt on entry-level and mid-range products.
The extent of the countries and products impacted are really a shock to the food sector, and dairy in particular, and French dairy producers.
Now, French President Emmanuel Macron was to convene all representatives of business sectors hit by the import tariffs announced by the US President on Wednesday. And as per the latest, he has urged companies to pause investments in the United States.
Tariffs, he understood. He said, look, I understand. And the other countries, and they all understand.
And oil prices plunged 6% on Thursday, with Brent crude falling to $70.44 a barrel after OPEC Plus accelerated its plan to increase output in May.
Now, this move added to losses sparked by President Trump's new tariffs, raising fears of a global trade war. Take a look at our next report for more on this.
Oil prices fell 6% on Thursday. Markets were shaken as OPEC Plus sped up its unwinding of oil output cuts in May. And that added to heavy losses already seen following US President Donald Trump's announcement of new tariffs on Wednesday. Brent futures were down around $4.50 or just over 6% at $70.44 a barrel by mid-afternoon trade European time. US West Texas Intermediate crude futures were down over 6% at a touch above $67. 8 OPEC Plus countries agreed at a Thursday meeting to advance their plan for oil output hikes. They now aim to return 411,000 barrels per day to the market in May, well up from the 135,000 initially planned. Oil prices were already trading some 4% lower before the meeting. Investors reacted to Trump's tariffs with concerns the move could cause a global trade war. They fear that will hurt economic growth and limit fuel demand. Trump on Wednesday unveiled a 10% minimum tariff on most goods imported to the US, the world's biggest oil consumer. He also put much higher duties on products from dozens of countries. The White House said Wednesday imports of oil, gas and refined products were exempted from the new tariffs.
Now, FIFA chief Gianni Infantino says that he is hopeful of Russia's return to international football soon.
But his counterpart at UEFA isn't quite as optimistic about Russia's comeback to top-level football.
I hope that we can soon move to the next page, bring back as well Russia in